So going into the first international break of the season, there is only one Championship club who has had a flawless start to the new campaign, and that is Sunderland, who currently sit top of the Championship. 4 games played, 4 wins, 12 points on the board, 10 goals scored and only 1 goal conceded. How seriously should we be taking this Sunderland side in terms of their potential promotion prospects this season? I thought we'd have a closer look at the Black Cats in today's video because their start to the season has certainly got people talking. Any Sunderland fans, I'd like to get your thoughts in the comments down below, and general fans of the Championship as well. What have you made of Sunderland so far? Now, it does go without saying we're only 4 games into this Championship season, and we shouldn't be getting carried away with any team as of yet, whether they've had a good or bad start. Let's remind ourselves, this was the Championship table after 4 games had taken place last season, and as we can see, my team Preston North End were sitting pretty at the top of the table. Funnily enough, we were the only team after 4 games of last season that won all 4 matches. You have Birmingham, who started out really well. They are up in 3rd, only to then go on and get relegated. So a lot can change between now and the end of the campaign, but Sunderland are a really interesting side right now. Even thinking back to their start last season, they were fairly decent out of the blocks. I know they lost their 2 opening matches, but this game at Deepdale early on last season, I remember Sunderland being quite decent. They just wasted a lot of chances in front of goal, and on the other day definitely could have beaten us. But they went on this decent run here from sort of September going into the start of October. And then after this point was where things started to unravel for them, really. It all started with that 4-0 loss against Middlesbrough. Mowbray was then dismissed around this point of the season, and then after that, apart from a few patches of results here and there, they were just never able to properly pick up things once again, and it ended as a really underwhelming campaign. But something that I don't think anyone's ever questioned with Sunderland, even going back to last season where they did underwhelm, was everyone always recognised and has recognised that there is an abundance of young talent, especially within that squad. Speaking of young talent, it goes without showing here, Sunderland have by far and away the youngest average age of any Championship club, just 22.9 years old. That's Sunderland's squad right now, which is the youngest in the league. And generally speaking, I thought they had a decent summer transfer window as well. I think they have complemented a lot of the youthful players with a little bit more experience, which has come in this summer, which in the long run, I think will be useful for them. Obviously, one of the big deals they got over the line was for Alan Brown, snapping him up on a free transfer after his contract at North End ran out. Obviously, myself being a Preston fan, massive fan of Alan Brown, it was a real shame to see him go, but I get why he was attracted to that Sunderland project. Chris Mentham, obviously someone who's got quite a bit of experience in the Championship as well, and then obviously Simon Moore, and then a lot of other young-ish sort of prospects as well, the typical sort of Sunderland recruits that we expect from this transfer model. It was sort of the case last season. Obviously the big departure was Jack Clarke as well, but where they lacked that clinical out and out experienced number 9, it does feel like maybe that could prove to be their Achilles heel once again. But there's no doubt this squad does have an abundance of goals in them, but when their backs are against the wall and they need that experienced forward to get you over the line, that generally speaking a lot of the promotion clubs from the Championship tend to have, we'll wait and see whether Sunderland have that in their ranks right now. In terms of the top performers within this Sunderland squad so far this season, this is what we're looking at. Obviously, Jack Clarke being their top performer, he's no longer there, but the bulk of the other top performers so far have been really young. Dennis Sirkin, who's been brilliant. Obviously, Luke O'Nien, someone who's a bit more experienced. But then you've got the likes of Joe Bellinger, Mayenda, who's been absolutely brilliant in leading the line for them so far. You've got players like Mundle and Rigg, who are only going to get better from this point onwards. Paveda, who's yet to be properly integrated to that squad as well. In terms of goal creation, the Black Cats have been looking really strong so far this season. They're the joint top scorers in the league. And in terms of actual chances created, XG accumulated, they've been the 4th best side in the division up until this point, with only Middlesbrough, Millwall and Leeds United having a higher XG than Sunderland in these opening 4 matches. But I think what's more impressive than that is the lack of shots they've actually faced so far this season. I think that's a real credit to the system under Reggie Lebris, how well drilled he's got this side, how hard working that midfield is. Up until this point in the season, they've only conceded an XG of 1.9 goals, which is by far the best in the Championship. I mean, you've got teams down here, Portsmouth, for example, who have faced an XG of 9 so far, Plymouth 8.9, Preston 6.8. Sunderland are miles clear of that. Obviously, it says here they haven't conceded a goal as of yet. That's because the one goal they have conceded has been an own goal, but the opposition is yet to technically score against them so far, I suppose. What ended up being Sunderland's Achilles heel last season was how wasteful they actually were in front of goal, because generally speaking, they did create a decent amount of chances last season. They just didn't have anyone clinical enough other than Jack Clark to consistently put the chances away. But so far this season, the script has sort of been flipped on its head, really, with that. Sunderland have been the 4th most clinical side in the Championship so far this season, based on the underlying numbers, overperforming their XG by 2.9 goals. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, this is a very small sample size that we're extrapolating these numbers from, and these could drastically change after the international break, but on the small sample size we've got at the moment, it does look promising. I think especially when you go ahead and contrast it to Sunderland's numbers from last season. So Sunderland last season in the Championship were by far the most wasteful side in the division. They underperformed their XG by 10.7 goals and were way down on the vast majority of other Championship clubs. Sunderland pretty much should have scored at least 11 more goals last season than they actually did, based on the quality of chances they created for themselves. So if they do have that bit more consistent finishing this season, with a defence which has proven so far to be really rigid, the sky's the limit for them. I think coming out of the international break as well, they have a decent run of fixtures where I'd imagine this good momentum will carry on. Obviously, the 2 tough games immediately after the international break that you probably look towards is that one against Middlesbrough and that one against Watford away. Obviously, 2 sides who have looked good in these opening matches, but based on the way they played so far, you'd probably expect them to go to Plymouth and win. They'll be the favourites in that game against Derby, and then if they can get 4 points out of these 2 matches, my word, they'll be in a really strong position. And I do think that if you can get some wind in your sails at this stage of the season, it really can help you to just carry you through the rest of the campaign. Now, obviously, anything can derail a side, an injury crisis, a few bad results, and the manager might lose the dressing room or something like that, but as was the case with Ipswich Town last season, they started the season like an absolute house on fire and just continued that momentum throughout the whole year. Sunderland were probably a really good example of how bad momentum can spiral with their results in the second half of last season, but they've managed to get all of that out of their system immediately, and I have to say there's a lot to like about them right now. What do you guys think? I'll leave it for you in the comments down below. Do you think Sunderland are realistic promotion candidates right now, or are you still yet to be convinced by them? Obviously, we've still got a lot of Championship football to go between now and the end of the campaign, but the early signs from Sunderland in these opening few weeks have been pretty promising, to say the least. Other than that though, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you for going ahead and tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new around here as well. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.